What's interesting, I'm from Harness. I'm Nick Durkin. I'm our field CTO at Harness. And we started life as continuous delivery as a service, and we wanted to solve this problem for all of our customers. Getting artifact to customer was one of the hardest things that we all do. And what's interesting is the journey that everyone goes on. Everyone starts their continuous delivery journey with velocity. We want to go faster. And we use our CI tools, and we use our open source tools, and we go fast. And then there's a realization that we have to govern this, and it gets challenging. We have to audit it. It has to be secure. It has to be compliant. It has to meet our requirements. And if a customer can be fast, and they can reach velocity, and they can govern it, the next problem that people have traditionally is quality. Because now that we're deploying appropriately, we've made it easy for people to do the right things. We've made it hard for them to do the wrong things. They can now deploy as fast as they want. And this causes a problem because there's not enough people sitting in our network operations center to actually know what broke what. And this becomes a huge issue. If a company can actually solve for velocity and governance and then even quality, where now we actually have automated not just what happens when things go out successfully, but also what happens when they fail. We automatically take response and we get them back to where they were. Now we have an issue with efficiency because now things are getting deployed as fast as we can to the cloud. They're being over-provisioned. They're being left on, and we have this massive issue. And so no matter where you're at in this journey, Harness is designed to help you in this. It's designed to remove the worst part of your job. Who loves babysitting deployments? Yes, one guy. Sweet. All right, you're with me. Two. Right? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. So much fun, right? I love sifting through logs. I love looking at all of the performance data. But here's the thing. No one loves waiting for their tests to run. No one loves for babysitting deployments. No one loves turning off the non-production infrastructure when it's not running. So let's get rid of the worst part of your job. And this is what we do. We help you go fast so you don't have to write complex deployments, blue, greens, canaries. You don't have to understand that you need 2 routes for your blue, green. We are built off of governance with security and auditability out of the box. So you can make sure it's easy for people to do the right thing, and it's very hard for them to do the wrong thing. Right? When you think about quality, we want to use AI and ML to think about things like your best engineers. If you want to talk more about AI and ML, come on downstairs. You can talk to me. We'll have a fun conversation about real machine learning and real artificial intelligence. But think about it the same way your best engineers would. And then lastly, when you actually get to production and you're running full force and we're doing it at velocity, do it in the most efficient manner. Bring down your costs and your carbon footprint doing it. Harness is here to help you across that entire journey and truly be your safety harness. If you're going to remember one thing about this, it's this. Everybody's heard people, process tools, people, process technology. All right, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to curse. I think it's crap. I think it's about confidence. It's not about people and process technology, it's about confidence. If you have confidence that your applications will go out appropriately, and God forbid if they break, they will actually get taken care of automatically by whether it be people, process, or tooling, that's what matters. In order to achieve velocity, you have to have confidence, and this is what Harness does for our customers. Right? Our customers' goal is to have world-class software delivery, and that's why we've got Antonio here, right, to talk from Corsearch about how they're actually on that journey.
Yeah, thanks very much. No, I think I don't need that one. So I'll start with the boring part, kind of presenting just a company, because otherwise it's a bit tricky, like, who are these guys? We basically work in trademark, brand protection, and content protection, so not dwelling too much on that part, because it's boring. The numbers kind of show the need we have to actually support a lot of information. From all these numbers, probably the one I'm a bit proud, together with someone in the audience, is the third one on the top. That is the 2 billion images that we process monthly for the brand protection, and check those against logo detection and other verifications, fingerprinting. And this was in the ETL, so both of us came from that department before we moved, as internally said, to the dark side, and we went to the infra and to the DevOps department. So why are we here, basically? Like, why you say, like, hey, this guy might be interesting for this case. The main reason why we are interesting is that it's always a big challenge to have everyone working the same way, right? Standardized, normalization. No one likes it, no one wants to do it, everyone has their preference. In Corsearch, it's even more tricky because basically Corsearch is a company that acquired very fast several companies, so it became a lot of companies under the same roof, each one having their own process, their own methodologies, everything different from each other. We combine that with mutual development teams worldwide, which probably a lot of you guys work in those setups, and you combine it in one major problem. That is the third point there. There is DevOps allocation to a product. The main issue with that is that we get a lot of single points of failure, right? Or 2 people. And if 2 people get sick, then that product didn't have like DevOps, because each one of the companies will have very small DevOps fingerprint, right? We combined them in a centralized place, but they couldn't really support everything because they were really focused on that, the place they were working previously. And then for some products, they're not all the same, but some of the products have very long delivery cycles. And when I say very long, for modern standards, very long, right? So yeah, it's faster to get just grocery at your house now than are the delivery cycles. Then the goal for us was mostly standardization, having some governance around it. Of course, improve how fast we can deliver it, then make it predictable, because the big problem about having DevOps allocated to a specific resource, they're not predictable anymore. Like, it can just break, and it's like, this person is sick now, you cannot deliver, because the person that is supposed to support you is not there anymore. So that's one of the parts that is quite important. Also, the fact that you could not pick up 5 DevOps and say, hey, you need to focus on this specific project. No, they kind of all over the place, all work in parallel, but very hard to get things from A to Z. You have A to B, maybe A to M, but nothing really A to Z super fast. Then being versatile, and that's the same topic, like just having the people being able to shift around, and of course, then cost optimization, because that's what everyone up really is interested in. So how this looks towards the infrastructure consolidation. So this is not on my realm, it's more cloud ops part. But of course, with having like all these companies, they were basically everywhere. So one of the first things, like focus on centralizing everything in AWS and our own data centers. In this case, I think the plan for now is having 3 on-prem data centers on the long run alongside with AWS. And the one that probably more interesting for this talk specifically, that is centralizing on the tool we're using as well. These are some of the tools we're using. I'm curious how many of you know Capistrano. It's kind of a hero internally for us, and a joke as well. So yeah, you need for sure to be somewhere hitting the midlife crisis to at least know that Capistrano even exists. Like is my case. So basically, this is what some of the tools we're using. Of course, alongside with this, we have some scripting that was run manually, which is even the most horrendous setups we have. That's why I don't put it in the slide, because we're too ashamed of it. But of course, we do have that. It's very inconsistent deployments. You cannot replicate them easily between the environments. So it's always a gamble when you deploy in those cases. And the first thing we looked into was try to normalize the toolchain. And you're probably going to think like, hey, what are all the other tools you need for this? Why you have only these items here? So the idea was to create what we consider like the backbone tool for each one of the steps on the DevOps loop. And by having that, it means that you know that this is the one that is responsible for that part. So Jira will be the main point for plan. For code is GitHub, but of course, like you're going to need Jira there as well. How do you correlate the two? In this case, smart commits is what we're going to start enforcing over time in the products. So they will correlate, but we say that everything code-related, the main point or the backbone will be GitHub. And then you can see that for a lot of the stuff after, we basically went with Harness. And that was one of the things we'd like with Harness as well. That was the fact that it could cover a lot of these items, meaning that we need to have as a backbone the least amount of tools for it, right? I'll say that I'm a big fan of simplification of process. So try to create always the simplest as possible, because extending, just for the reason of extending, really makes it hard to maintain in the long run. So each tool we bring in brings also a cost with it, right? And I think this is time to go to Nick.
All right, so how did we do that? How was the engagement with Harness? It took about 25 days from the first demo that we had with Corsearch to show them the actual value of the product. We jumped into a POV, and we wanted that POV not to be feature-based. We have thousands of features that can help in that situation, but we wanted to understand the customer. So the most important aspect of this timeline is what's called the business value assessment. As part of the business value assessment, what we do is we look at all those different small manual tasks that engineers and DevOps engineers do, and trying to understand how much they cost. Things like onboarding. A company like Corsearch with so many acquisitions, how long does it take to onboard the new employees, the new DevOps engineers? That can be translated immediately to money waste. At the same time, how long does it take to maintain all those different solutions that we saw on the slide earlier? It's about 80 hours per year. And then if we look at CD, it's about the same. A company with, like Corsearch with massive growth, they don't only care about the current state, they also care about how they can increase their velocity. With the current toolset, it was a little bit difficult to do because they spend most of their time maintaining the solution that they had. If we drill down even further into the actual technologies being used and look at each one of those components individually, let's have a look at the build. Developers waiting for build pipelines to complete, that's a waste of time. Scripts required for Jenkins and deployments. If you want to onboard new technologies, let's say that you start by deploying into ECS and you want to migrate to Kubernetes, how long does it take you to make that migration with Jenkins? It's a massive amount of time. And as you can see from this diagram, from this slide, we assigned all that time into actual resources. You can see the time at the bottom, and we knew already that Corsearch was going through a massive growth. Back then, they were hiring about 20 devs, and I still believe they're hiring a lot of devs. So they needed a tool to actually help them onboard faster, deliver software faster, and have the ability to accommodate for the new growth. Therefore, they progressed to the next stage, and we started brainstorming ideas of how they can implement this software delivery pipeline.
Thanks. So back to me. Yeah, so this is a little bit of the view of what we're aiming for. And this desired state doesn't mean that it's like the optimal state you want to be 5 years from now. So I think that is good to redefine what is the desired state. I think desired state should be something that is achievable, right? And that you're aiming for a certain period of time. So on this one, probably some of you are like, well, maybe I'll put this extra tool there, or this one, or that one. And there is a lot of tools that you're probably going to need over time. But it's probably better to do A to Z to all of them in all products, and then roll the next step and having other tools being added. Or else you're going to end up a little bit like we had in a lot of the other companies, where tools were put there, maybe used for one specific project or application or microservice, and not for all the other ones. So now to an interesting point that is like, okay, that's great. Like you want to modernize how you're doing things with these companies, but how do you assess where you are at the moment? We were doing a lot of work internally with one of the colleagues that is actually here, called Jordan. Say hi. Just to stress him out. And we were doing this work internally, like how are we going to look at the teams, the products we have, and assess where the maturity are. And we found it actually quite hard. Like which questions to put there, like how do you assess it easily? Can you have a self-assessment? How we validate that assessment? So we start looking, as everyone, into the internet to see what is out there. And we found a very interesting white paper, maturity model white paper by Datadog, which we actually using, as you have seen on the previous diagram. And what you have here is actually an assessment done for one of our products. So one of the VPs responsible for that product just did the assessment and kind of went there and say, like, this is a place we are. The interesting thing about this one is that it helps you answer those 3 questions there. That is, what is the current level? What is the desired level you want to go, and how you get there, right? So the how you get there, you need to work for yourself, but at least it helps you answer that. Because apart from this, the white paper includes actually what does it mean to be in a specific maturity level, yeah? So on this specific case, we might be inclined to think, hey, let's focus all the effort in operate because it looks like it is the one dragging more behind, right? But on this specific product, I think we actually focus more on the release and deployment because that's where the problems were occurring the most. And also the easiest win, because if you see not that much of a jump to bring them into the next maturity level. I'll say on this product, probably second for me will be probably the observe and respond, because it's lacking quite a lot. So maybe we can even have some problems on the operator we're not really aware, because if you can see, like the observe and respond is quite weak in terms of maturity it is now, right? But definitely focus on the release and deploy first. And that's what I'm going to look here. So this is a timeline, how this looks like. And it goes against one principle that I do appreciate a lot, that is like one step at a time. Because sometimes you just try to do everything, and it's great, but you just get yourself overwhelmed. So here was like one of the first assessments was like, we actually don't know how secure the tool is, because there was nothing screening for security. So even before any of the steps for release or anything, there was one from security that we need to have white source plugged in to actually assess that tool. And then we are now working on the remaining items, like the automated migrations. They actually run the migrations via a custom script that they run on a server directly, for instance, which is not really acceptable. So we're moving into Flyway database for that. And hopefully what we want to get after is using some of the functionalities, not wanted to talk about all of them, but anomaly detection with Harness and Datadog is quite interesting one because we'll allow you to actually just verify if you have any anomaly after the deployment, and hopefully after that being able to set up some auto rollbacks as well.
Who monitors their deployments in production? APM technologies? Performance, right? Logs? Right? Who loves sifting through those? Favorite thing ever, right? Same two people that raised it earlier? Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Like, no one enjoys this. It's the worst part of the job, right? And we get called at 3 o'clock in the morning to go fix it, even though it's nothing to do with us. Right? We have to prove our innocence as opposed to prove our guilt. It's insane. But here's the thing is, why not let machine learning think about this like you do? Why not let it actually understand and comprehend the same things? Look, if your latency's gone up dramatically in comparison, what would we go do? We'd probably go look at the logs. Well, let's go look at the logs for you and bring out the ones that are brand new. Let's understand the ones that always happen every single time we deploy. That's fine. We see them. Don't worry about it. You know what? What if you see a change in velocity? That's actually hard for humans to see. Right? Same error, same one we see all the time, but it's gone from 3 events to 30. You might want to know about that. And you especially want to know about those ones that come up brand new. And let's think about it in the same way you deploy. If you do a canary deployment, like, great, I can look at them side by side. No big deal. But that doesn't always work. What if you do non-production deployments in staging? Now I can do a previous analysis. I can look at the last time it ran in production. But here's where it gets hard. What if it's like a regular deployment with downtime or a blue-green? Well, now I don't have 2 versions side by side, so I can't do a canary analysis. And your traffic 5 minutes ago doesn't look like your traffic 5 minutes from now, so I can't look at it that way. I have to actually compute seasonality. I have to build modeling to think about it like you would to do it for you. But this is what Harness does. Like, let's remove that for you, and then let's automatically get you back to where you were before you started. God forbid something happens. Because Harness knows what you deployed, on which infrastructure, with which configuration, and which secrets. We can always get you right back where you were, and again, you don't write a single line of code. Anyhow, sorry about that.
All good, all good. So where else?
I ruined it. I'm so sorry.
Now. So going back to the other one, so if you're shifting a team or a product, right, from one maturity level to another, what does actually that entitles to the ownership of the pipelines between the operations and the devs? And this one I'll say is not like a final list. We're still kind of fine-tuning where we want to be. But the plan is that depending on the maturity level of the product, like the ownership will be more on the DevOps team in this case, right? Or will be slowly shifting more to the developers and giving more power to do more things. Of course, this is not nothing around trusting, right? We trust, but it's like you're not in the place, your product is not in the place that is going to be secure, that we're not going to have problems 3 in the morning, right? So that's why, okay, let us control that for you, and let's work together towards push this to a higher maturity level, that then you can do everything. Because I'm the biggest defender, like I was previously a developer, so I really believe in like let the developers do everything in terms of delivering of the product, completely, get it out there. But of course, for you to be able to do that, you need to have and make sure that you are in a place you can do it securely. One of the interesting things I think between these steps is probably the governance via the OPA-based policies, because that is like an important step because we're going to move or shift the responsibility to the developers, but also defining what are the rules. Because another problem is that at this moment, if the rules are not defined, and developers do it in a certain way, we cannot say, hey, is it wrong or right? So you need to actually have a contract and a way to say, this is how we do it here together. And around this governance on OPA and other items, we do have a logic of creating COPs, right? A community of practice. And one of them is around CI/CD. And we plan to have a pilot product that will show like this is how we want it to look. And then different elements from different departments will join these COPs that we're probably going to do bi-weekly and work together towards, okay, where we want to be, and is this the pilot we want to start? Do we see problems in it? And kind of build together the future. And that's why this is not defined yet, because it's something we're going to define together with all the dev teams. And yeah.
One of the ways that I look at it as you want to empower your engineers to do their best work. right? I want my security team to be able to define all the policies. They don't need to necessarily give me all the templates that I have to get out. I hate being bound to just that single template that I'm allowed to use. I want to extend it. I want to go do extra things. I want to do neat. Well, great. Give me a policy that allows me to do that. That, again, makes it easy for me to do the right things, makes it hard for me to do the wrong things. Great. I don't have the right security scanning. I have to add it. I'm adding shell scripts that I'm not allowed to run. I can't run it, right? And being able to apply those policies across the entire pipeline. At the end of the day, this empowers your engineers. So great, let the security team create that. Let the operation teams define the infrastructure you're allowed to deploy to. So you don't have to care, right? And then as an engineer, now I can actually run those pipelines as I wish, modify them as I want, and now we're actually starting to move, right? Now that's the goal, is if we empower all the teams to actually use it appropriately, then everybody gets to work in harmony, as opposed to making it a battle. And I think that's really the intent here. As you go down and you get to the expert levels, it's about bringing that confidence to all those teams. Without doing that, no one is happy with anybody, and we're all going to expect everybody, and we're going to expect you doing it wrong, right? And that's what we don't. That'll never actually get out to production then.
Yep. Yeah, and that's really that. Like, it's a matter of trust and just building it together. And I think in terms of how fast can you go to production, one small side note for me will be as well, like on the company we were before, because I was also acquired, right? The company I worked from was acquired. We had this policy where if a microservice was being built, it was in production on the first day of the sprint it was being built. And would be just deployed there with a health check saying, I'm okay. And it would be deployed into production. Doing nothing. People say, but are you throwing away resources by doing that? I don't think so, because everything you're building afterwards is actually always going to production. Because as everyone has experienced for sure in the past, you'll have these horrendous cycles where you do the sprint, and somewhere on the second week of the sprint, if you're doing 2-week sprints, things start coming together. They're not really as expected, even if you have like a feature branch. Then someone starts checking that, and then usually one developer, maybe the most senior one, or the tech lead, or whatever, is going to end up in a nightmare in the last 2 days of the sprint, just making sure everything is working, and then pushing to production. And then are you going to actually push something good to production? Because now you have so much stuff that you have to make sure it was working correctly at the end. Pushing to production at the last minute sometimes is that the place you want to be. So this goes around that effort of just saying, like, if you have a feature that or a new service you're pulling in, slowly the teams as they evolve, right? And if they get to the advanced level, they should be able to already achieve that. Just go there, push it to production, day 0, even if it only has a health check. Yep. And another interesting thing is that we were built on acquisitions, and I'm quite sure that's not going to stop. And for that reason, we always have the challenge, because we end up in this place because as acquisitions happen, there was no consolidation, right? So companies kind of continue to work their own way under just the same roof. So this is kind of the place where the pipelines from Arnes will help, because what we want to do as soon as possible is say, we acquired a company, so there is a new acquisition. We will try to do some maturity assessment to understand where they are with their products, and then right away migrate at least as is to Arnes. And that makes a big shift, even if it might not look like, because it means that ownership is also shifting right away. So it means we now, from this moment on, are able to be responsible and actually properly manage these new products coming in. Apart from that, then we have, of course, the other items, and the list will go on with other items there, but like, of course, some of the products come GitLab, we need to migrate them to GitHub, we need to integrate them with Datadog, we have data center consolidations happening, so maybe they are in whatever data center, we need to move it to AWS or on-prem, but all those become more irrelevant once everything is in Arnes, because it doesn't matter for the developer anymore, right? You just have a connector, and that's really easy to set up with Arnes in that case. So you're saying, hey, this connector is now targeting this point, now target that one. Completely seamless for the developers. We have experienced this one already, even though we are with Arnes with only 3 months in, because, for instance, with new products, we actually start provisioning first for ECS, and then we switch to Kubernetes. Developers are not even aware, and it doesn't matter for them, right? Because they focus again on what they need to be focused on. So this will be the last one for me. I'm not sure how we are on time. Good?
We have 15 minutes, so we can do a demo.
Oh, okay. So we went faster than expected, I think. I talked too much, so I was concerned about that, and I probably was too conservative. So this is kind of an idea where we are at the moment with Arnes after these 3 months in. So we have 2 new products that are being built. There are kind of consolidation products. Those are being already delivered now to the development environments because they are still in development stage, not going to staging or production yet. They are being fully delivered by Arnes. The DevOps onboarding also really got optimized, so we have some new DevOps coming in. That was way easier to get them knowledge of where is there, mostly because now everything is the same. So, right, you go there, it's quite visual, you see where we are, and it's really easy to move forward. Then the normalization of several legacy applications. So we have a lot of, well, some people not be keen on me using here the legacy application title.
I call those legendary. It's not legacy, it's legendary, right?
People get very sensitive about that very fast. But yeah, they are legacy. We all know that you produce a product today, you deliver it next day. It's legacy, either you like it or not, right? That's a reality. You're always going to know exactly what we should output on the moment you get it out there. So that's fine, but I'll say modernization, some of them are also standardization, because I think some of the products are actually pretty good. They're just not in different places, right? So we just want to put them in the same house. And then one of the things we're doing that is quite cool is that we provision already our Kubernetes clusters directly through Arnes. So it means that you can really set up one incredibly easy and just say, hey, target that location, namespaces, set up everything, it goes there. And that's how we provision for the new 2 products. We start with ECS, because that was the easiest one to deliver. So they have already something to work on. And then we switch to Kubernetes using this self-service, and it was like, I don't know, an hour or something, and then it's there, all running, all set up.
Do you want to show a demo?
Yes.
Live demos are like my favorite. Everybody go to that? Anyone want to see it? Go.
There is one thing to mention here. Obviously, with all that time saved from maintaining all those solutions, we started brainstorming around what would be the ideal pipeline. And I think, Antonio, you mentioned it a second ago, that we want developers not even knowing where they deploy code. So what you see on the screen is a template of a pipeline that we were thinking with Antonio and his team to take away that knowledge of what environment the code is deployed. So you can see we start from a dev branch coming in from Git directly triggering the pipeline. So developers commit their code into that dev branch. And from then, we take that code, we build it, we deploy it into a test environment where we start running tests. And you can see we have integration tests, Selenium tests, X-ray tests. And therefore, we have the ability to get all that information of the new code that was committed into that new branch. And then, after the successful execution of those results, we can merge that branch into master, which becomes our main branch for deployment into production. If something goes wrong, we raise a Jira ticket, we notify the developer immediately. And finally, after we have our new branch, our production branch, we can then progress and deploy into production. And what type of deployment? It might be ECS, it might be Kubernetes, or it might be anything other than that. Alongside that, I think on the next phase, Corsearch wants to implement the anomaly detection. I have a pipeline over here that deployed into a production environment. And first of all, we are doing a canary deployment. We want to be able to safely deploy our new version as part of a canary without disrupting the production services. And what's the point of deploying a canary if we cannot verify it? Everybody that was saying that looks at APM tools, do you actually look for the canary identifier when you deploy a canary? No? Well, it's very hard. I don't know. I used AppDynamics in the past. It's very hard to find that canary instance. But Harness can do that automatically. We are going to hook into your APM tools and look at the metrics of that specific service, the individual pod, and start comparing those metrics against your baseline to validate if that canary can work as expected. At the same time, we are using machine learning on the logs and metrics. But on the logs is extremely interesting. We are using something very common, but in a powerful way. We are using k-means clustering and neural nets to eliminate the noise, to understand the logs that are problematic for your app. As Nick says always, like your best engineers, we can look at the logs and understand what's impacting the application or not. And if something goes wrong, we have the ability to automatically roll back. Like in this scenario, you can see we rolled back the canary, and we're back where we started without any problem. Within a few seconds, no harm done.
I think that's probably it. We've got time for questions from the folks. The intention here is just that. This should be astronomically easy to build. If you want, show them what this can look like for configuring it. because you can do this in a UI, but I hate UIs. I think UIs are stupid, so that's fine. And so if you want to do this in the UI and you want to build it in the UI, great. Let's empower the people that want to do that. But maybe I want to do this as configuration as code as well, because that's going to make my life a hell of a lot easier. Let's do that. All right, let's make sure that our engineers have the way to actually use this the way it should. And let's make sure it's dry. Don't repeat yourself. Let's use templates that we have, that we've created, that we know what good looks like, and let's not keep rewriting them. Who's got 3,000 copies of the same script in Jenkins somewhere? Okay, we have some laughs, so I know you do. It's fine. You don't have to admit it. You don't have to raise it in front of your peers, but I know you all do, right? Let's not do that. Right? The idea here is to actually make this work in a way that's meaningful and fun, and then get all the information that you need to actually solve a problem. As an engineer, you should never see harness unless something goes wrong. And then what you want to see is every single thing you need to be able to actually answer the question of what broke, when, where, why, and how. Right? That's the intention. If this is interesting at all to you guys, we can show you how massive customers do this, the largest banks in the world. So we've got, 7 of the 10 largest financial institutions in the world using Harness, airlines, so forth, to literally deploy software in a secure, governed way. Come on down to our booth and take a look at it. We can talk to you. We've got the Corsearch folks down there showing you exactly how they did it. If this is more complicated than what you do today, don't use it. But I can guarantee you get this up and running in a few hours. Right? That's dramatically different than the 6 years it took us to go build continuous delivery at whatever company we're at.